Designer style. What does that mean when we say that? It's fashion, isn't it? Everybody's into the designer style clothes. And this guy here, when he got up in the morning, he didn't just grab the first clothes he came across. Do you think that's by accident he looks like that? You look at the fashion shows. People put on the most ridiculous outfits and then try and tell you that you'll only look cool if you're wearing one of these. But this guy here put some thought into the way he's dressed. Do you agree with me? It's not an accident. We've got a big event going on in the world that's involving New Zealand. It's not rugby. It's the America's Cup. And these things here, there's a lot of design in them, is there not? There's structural materials, there's aerodynamics, there's weight distribution, lift capacity, onboard computing. There's even crew communication systems. And ... There's so much that we wouldn't even understand. There's a massive amount of design went into these boats that actually fly today. They've come a long way. From over 100 years ago, this is what the America's Cup boats used to look like. That's what they used to race. Massive difference, isn't there? You know, a French car in 1912 looked like this. That's a French car from 1912. This is what a French car looks like in 2010. That's the difference in 98 years. And when you lift the bonnet, there's a bit of difference as well. So this is the engine from 1912. It's got external push rods. I know the ladies are all glazing over now. What's he talking about? But that engine is nothing like the engine in your car that you came in here in tonight. In fact, under your bonnet looks like that. There's just so much stuff going on. And I think the dashboard has changed a little as well. That's the dashboard in 1912. This is the dashboard in a 2010 Peugeot French car, 98 years later. This thing's got computer-controlled everything. Lights turn on by themselves, wipers run by themselves. Has all these, it's just amazing what it can do. And do you know how this car in 98 years became this car? It was left outside. It was left out, sitting out in the rain, and the car started to think, so this pile of metal, these minerals and a bit of rubber and some wood, was sitting there, and it started to think, my seat's going to get ruined. I had better evolve a roof. Once it had got the roof on, it decided it's difficult for my owner to drive without wipers, so it developed wipers. It developed ABS, cruise control. The car kept thinking about what it could do to better itself. And then, 98 years later, it looked like this. Fully functional car. Do you accept that? Why? Oh, a car doesn't have a brain. Are you sure? Well, how did it get from that? Why don't French cars still look like that 98 years later? Or add another 14 years and they look like that. That's a 2024 model. That thing's got more computer-controlled stuff than the 2010 one by double. This thing, I mean, I don't even think you even have to drive it. It just does everything. The iCockpit does everything for you. How did it get there? You don't believe that the car thought about it and thought, how could I better myself? Really? Well, you know, we all know that doesn't happen. Because that car left outside, that car that I showed you, took 22 years to get restored. 22 years to be restored. So you just think about that. 22 years off 98. What's that? 77. And that was fixed a few years ago. So maybe 60 to 70 years that car had sat around. And do you know what had happened to it? It didn't get better. It got worse. It was a heap of junk, and it was restored lovingly over 22 years. Do you know what happens to cars if you leave them? They deteriorate. Perfect evidence of the second law of thermodynamics. Everything is heading to entropy. Everything's just corroding and eroding away. Stuff doesn't get better on its own. You know how those cars got better? designer style. Somebody designed every new innovation over the last 98 years, the last 112 years, to get the cars to where they are today. Do you agree with me? Do you think that somebody had something to do with that? Or did it just happen? Well, the problem I have with this book is that it says stuff just happened. It just happened. This book opens with this line in Hebrew. Bereshit bare Elohim et hashavayim vayet hayrats. You know what it says, friends? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I think that's logical, reasonable, and rational, that when I look at the complexity of our world, that somebody designed it. Do you agree? It's a designer. It just couldn't happen. But the gobbledygook, this here, I can't translate that. But I can sort of give you a bit of an idea of what it says. A long time ago, nothing became everything for no reason. I don't think that's logical, rational, or reasonable. The scripture goes on, continues to say, repetitively, and we'll be here, I'd use all my 28 minutes up showing you all the texts in the Bible that concur with this. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. It was all made. Every part of that little car that I showed you was made. Every part of that, my car sitting down there, was made. This is from Hebrews. Has in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the world. Key word here, he made it. Everything we see here, you can't show me one thing in your home, in our society, in the world, that just happened to make itself. Everything had a designer and a creator. For by him, Colossians tells us, were many things created. No, it's not many, friends, it's all, isn't it? All things were created. God that made the world. This is Paul talking to people who were worshipping idols of stone and gold and silver. What we saw in the previous program, he says, you're nothing. You can't do anything. And he says, an abomination is he that follows you. The Greeks were all, the Areopagus were serving these idols, and they had an idol to the unknown God. Paul says, I'm going to tell you who he is. He says, he's God that made the world. That's who the God is that the Jews worship. The God that made the world and all things therein. Seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, he dwells not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hands, as though he needed anything. Seeing he gives to all what? Life and breath and all things. He even says, for in him we live and move and have our being. I love this verse in Psalms 104. O Lord, how manifold are your works. In what? In wisdom. You made them all. The earth is full of your riches. And he says, so is this great and wide sea, where are things creeping innumerable. But he says, in wisdom you've made them. Do you think the guy that invented ABS in cars and his kid braking systems, do you think he just woke up one morning and it was sitting on his table? He thought about it. Every innovation in the world, somebody in wisdom has contemplated it, they've conceived it, then they've created it, they've put it into action. And sometimes it's trial and error. It doesn't just happen. We have never seen anything happen just by chance. Everything in our world, everything about you, screams out designer style. There's a designer. Someone in wisdom created what we can see. This sign here had a designer. He's sitting at the back. Had a creator. They're over in Australia. It's got an owner. It's me. But that didn't just come by chance. I didn't just go, oh, I probably need a banner. Walked out in the woods and here was one. No, it's got a designer. Everything screams of design, does it not? And I just want to share some amazing stuff with you. Science spins my wheels. I hope it doesn't bore you too much. But I want to get a bit scientific with you because science showed me that God existed. Let's have a look at other means of transport. Other means of transport, we looked at boats and cars. What other means of transport are there? Okay, planes. I want to talk about really important stuff. Oxygen and nutrients. You know your heart, this heart that you've got, is an amazing machine. In fact, you're a blood factory. You're a blood factory. You're continually making blood. And every minute your heart pumps 7 litres of blood through 100,000 kilometres of blood vessels. All had to be there at the same time, friends. During an average lifetime, your heart pumps about 1 million barrels of blood, or enough to fill more than 3 super tankers. Staggering, isn't it? How many of you have ever said, hey, heart, beat? Have you ever had to do that and just remind it to do its business? The heart is its own electrical supply and will continue to beat even when separated from the body, as long as it has adequate supply of oxygen. Your heart beats about 100,000 times per day. In an average lifetime, the human heart will beat more than 2.5 billion times. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing? I'd like to see a fuel pump in any car that can do 2.5 billion pumps over a period of 100 years. Deteriorates. Every cell in the body gets blood from the heart, except for the corneas in the eye, and that equates to 75 trillion cells. Let's just narrow it down a wee bit more. These things here. Does anyone know what they are? Can anyone tell me what they are? They're red blood cells. Some scientists got the best computers in the world at the time and told them to design something that had the maximum surface area. They said the computer was programmed to create a shape that would have more surface area than anything else. Do you know what the computer came up with? A red blood cell shape. It's got the highest surface capacity of anything. It's perfect. We've never seen it be improved on. It's totally functional as it is, and is a testament to a designer. It wasn't designed by a supercomputer. We get 95% of our oxygen through the lungs, and the remaining 3% is absorbed through the plasma. Enter hemoglobin. I'm going to get it down smaller and smaller here. And I'm just following one avenue. I could keep you bored for hours and hours talking about these scientific things that show me God exists. Let's look at hemoglobin. It's an essential part of red blood cells which transport oxygen to every organ in the body. Hemoglobin, and by the way, how would we get on if we didn't have hemoglobin and we only had plasma and we only had 3% of the oxygen? You know what you'd do? Do you know what you'd be? You'd be like a jellyfish. You'd just sit there not being able to do anything. You'd have no energy. Hemoglobin increases the blood's capacity to transport oxygen by 30 to 100 times more than if it were only carried by plasma. Each red blood cell is about 33%, or 1/3, hemoglobin. There are 4 atoms in each molecule of hemoglobin. 4 iron atoms, sorry. And they accordingly can bind 4 molecules of oxygen. So they, as they're going through the lungs, they lack each molecule of iron, the heme, that's where it comes from, heme meaning iron, globin meaning protein. Each molecule of iron grabs a molecule of oxygen, but it's an unstable and reversible bond. So it gets carried through your body and then it gets released. It's a rare thing to have an unstable, reversible bond in chemistry. I'm pleased that just happened to happen. I'm pleased that sometime during the evolutionary train from me becoming a human from a monkey, and the monkey becoming a monkey from a rock, somehow hemoglobin came on the scene. Are you? Are you pleased about that? It is the iron atom that binds oxygen as the blood travels between the lungs and the tissues. Hemoglobin develops in the bone marrow that becomes red blood cells. That's where it comes from. When red cells die, hemoglobin is broken up and it's salvaged and transported back to the bone marrow. This is happening inside you while I'm speaking, friends, by proteins called transferrins, and it's used again in the production of new red blood cells. And I will add this, if the hemoglobin that doesn't get recycled gets turned into bilirubin, and that's what gives the distinct colour to your feces. What about trees? So we've talked about how oxygen gets transported through us. Trees are almost more amazing. Trees transport nutrients both up and down. Oxygen goes both ways. This is a Douglas fir tree. Do you know scientifically, has anybody here studied hydrology? Oh, good, I can say what I like. No, but I'm only going to share the facts with you. My dad used to work a bit with that, so I knew the facts. With all the technology we've got today, the highest that we can suck water up, you have to create a pure vacuum, is 33.6 feet, about 10 metres, a bit under 10 metres. Doesn't matter how big the pump is, but we cannot humans can't create a pure vacuum yet, so about 28 to 30 feet is the maximum amount that you can suck water up by vacuum. You know, trees suck water up 2 and even up to 300 feet. We can't do that. They've got an amazing system. And they transport oxygen, nutrients up and down the tree. And it's just an amazing design. Trees just absolutely intrigue me. We can't build something that heavy that can sway in the wind and bend without breaking. We can make a steel pole that can resist the wind, but nothing that can carry so much weight of foliage. Let's have a look at oxygen and nutrients now. In New Zealand, we are deficient in these nutrients here: iodine, selenium, zinc, chromium, boron. I don't have time to talk to you about all of them. I just want to talk to you about one. This is one nutrient, selenium. Selenium is a nutrient that the body needs to stay healthy. It's not in our soil, friends. So we've got a bit of a problem. Selenium is important for reproduction, thyroid gland function, DNA production, and protecting the body from damage caused by free radicals and from infection. Do you think any of these things are important? So how did we function before we found a way of getting selenium? None of these things could just happen by chance. I think you're getting the point of where I'm coming from. Selenium is crucial for the health and proper functioning of your immune system. Your immune system. This is something I studied when I was young quite intently. Do that again. This is something that I studied quite intently when I was young. Higher levels of selenium may help boost the immune system of people with HIV, influenza, tuberculosis, and hepatitis C. In the immune system, selenium stimulates antibody formation and activity of helper T cells, cytotoxic T cells, and natural killer cells, NKs. Let's get really small now. This is one of the things that just blew me away when I was studying cytotoxic diseases when I was young. Do you know what a T cell is? Do you ever tell your T cells what to do? Have you ever woken up in the morning and say, right, now T cells, you get to business, you do that, just tell your body what to do? Have you ever instructed your T cells on what to do? I'm going to show you an artist's picture. This is a bacterium in amongst the red blood cells. Now we know bacteria cause disease. If it wasn't for what I'm about to tell you now, none of us would be alive in a week's time. If this wasn't part of our system, we wouldn't live. That's an artist's impression of a bacteria. I want to show you a picture of a T4 bacteriophage from an electron microscope. I'm going to tell you what it does, and I'll tell you a story about it. That's what it looks like. That is a T4 bacteriophage. Here's an artist's drawing so we can see it more clearly. It's attacking a bacterium, single bacterium. I was reading an article in a doctor's surgery. You know, there was a Time magazine or National Geographic or something. And when I was reading it, I read about the man that first ever saw one of these things happening through an electron microscope. What this thing does, it finds a bacterium, it goes through the blood at high speed, nails the bacterium, it turns itself into a hypodermic needle here, this is just an artist's impression, turns into a hypodermic needle, injects itself through the needle, and goes and makes 200 of itself instantly and just blows the bacterium to bits. The scientist that was the first ever to see that, lifted his eyes from the microscope, looked around the laboratory and said, there is a God. There is a God. That can't just happen, friends, can it? So let's go to selenium. Where do we get it from? Because the problem is minerals cannot be made by living organisms. So if the minerals are not in the soil, and we know they're not, they cannot be in our food. So where do we get them? Where do we get selenium in New Zealand from? Anyone know? Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts, that's where we can get selenium. You don't want to eat too many. Great question coming from the floor. Are they grown here? Ooh. I didn't program that question, by the way, but it's the best question I could be asked. Where do they come from? The Brazil nuts come like this, don't they? They come in packages. And you go and get them from the farm, which is called the supermarket. No, friends. The story of selenium, of Brazil nuts, is staggering. This is what they look like when they get them in the Brazilian jungle. You cannot grow Brazil nut trees anywhere else in the world. They can't produce Brazil nuts. They can't take them and start growing them in America or New Zealand or anywhere else. But that's what they look like. So we get Brazil nuts because this guy goes out in the forest and picks them up. But he couldn't do that if it wasn't for our little mate here. This cute little animal is called an agouti. An agouti. So we want to say thank you for our selenium through the Brazil nuts. Do you want to know an amazing story of mutualism? Mutualism is where animals and plants and insects live in a symbiotic relationship. It's called mutualism. This is what a scientist says about it. One demonstration of this is how we get Brazil nuts, is the manner in which the flowers of the tree have evolved in conjunction with other insect and mammal species that are harboured in the rainforests. I'm going to tell you what he's talking about. And I want you to tell me, logically, reasonably, and rationally, how one piece of this picture could be missing. Joel Atkins in 1965. Does anybody remember that song? You can show your age. Remember to tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees? Well, I'm going to tell you all about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees. Your selenium gets into your Brazil nuts and gets onto your table because of this little guy here. The Eulosine bee. That's Mr. Eulosine bee. And do you know what he's doing? He is pollinating the flower, but do you know what he's doing? He's getting his links on. He's getting nothing from the flower. He's not eating off the flower. He's going there to get pollen. Give me another 20 minutes and I'll tell you how he sticks it through a hollow in a groove into his tibia and it scents his whole body. He's out there getting his links on because he wants to impress this lady. This is the female Eulosine bee. She's the only insect strong enough to rip open the cap of the Brazil nut flower and then fertilise it. Because she's in there after the nectar. And she's not interested in any of the boys that don't smell like that orchid. So you can't grow a Brazil nut somewhere else without growing the orchid, and the orchid won't grow anywhere else. But it doesn't stop there, friends. So we see an interesting relationship. You need the orchid, you need the male bee, and then the female bee. And that's what happens. She fertilises the tree and it grows all of these big pods. The pods fall to the ground. And that's what they look like inside the pods. That's how the Brazil nuts we know, the ones at Christmas that you have to open. That's what they look like on the inside. But that pod is useless. They won't germinate in the pod. So enter our old mate, the agouti. The agouti comes along. He's got amazingly powerful jaws. He's a rodent. And he's one of the only creatures in the world that can open those Brazil nut pods. Massively powerful jaws. But not such a good memory. He goes and buries the seeds like a squirrel for later and then forgets where he buries them. And that's how the Brazil nuts get planted. Every Brazil nut is planted by an agouti in the wild. Isn't that amazing? Do you know that just evolved over millions of years? You know, the trees were able to just exist for millions of years before the orchid came along or the bee. If you want to believe that, friends, then you believe that by its own cognizance, that car became that car in 98 years. But it doesn't end there. Because these trees, these mighty trees, they're huge trees in the Brazilian rainforest, they only grow there because of, I won't go through all the details here, but the structure of the soil is such that they need certain nutrients that they can only find in the Brazilian rainforest. So even when they try and plant a tree somewhere else, it doesn't do very well or it dies. Plants extend their roots into the ground. This is from New Zealand, Be Pure, it's a New Zealand website. Plants extend their roots into the ground to absorb the nutrients needed for growth. Then bacteria and fungi work in synergy to help plants absorb the minerals and vitamins in the soil. That's how the selenium gets into the Brazil nuts. But it's no good being in the Brazil nut. Something has to happen with it. We have to eat it. We have to eat it. And then when we eat it, the miracle continues to go on. Selenium is mainly absorbed in the duodenum and the cecum by active transport through a sodium pump. Take the sodium pump out of your system, are you going to get selenium? So all the miracles that have taken place to get you the selenium, it's no good. The sodium pump had to be there along with the rest of our system at the same time, friends. What is the duodenum and the cecum? Well, I'll just show you. That's what you look like on the inside. Have a look. Yep, that's you. Have a look. You're all sure that's exactly what we look like on the inside? Some of us maybe have had some bits taken out, but they will remove some of it. This is the duodenum, one of the most important organs in your body. I could get sidetracked on that, but I won't. That is where your pancreas feeds into. It's so important when it comes to digestion. Selenium is digested there. In case a bit of it gets missed, then the cecum down here where your appendix hangs off, we get a second chance to get some of the selenium out. So I want to ask you, friends, where do we get selenium from? I'm going to give you 3 options. From nature. Nature just thought about it. Oh, I can't fertilise this tree. Maybe I better make it an orchid that a bee wants to get some scent off that will fertilise the female and then she can open the flower. So nature. Or God. Or is it just we get our selenium from Countdown? Well, nature can't think any more than a car can think. I was listening to a lady once speaking on a program, and it was absolutely amazing what she was sharing. And I thought, this lady's onto it. She was a PhD scientist. And then at the end, when she didn't even back herself into a corner, she just presented the most amazing mutualism that you could ever imagine. And then she said, evolution had a problem. So it thought about it and came up with the bee. It wasn't actually that story, but something just similar. I was stunned. Does evolution think? No, evolution can't think, and it's not Countdown. God gave it to us. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. To you it shall be for meat. You know, friends, that verse changed my life when I suddenly realised the Bible knew what I'd spent 10 years studying. And I suddenly realised that there's a designer behind every created thing. Whether it's a seed, whether it's a giant tree, whether it's your human body, whether it's your T4 bacteriophage, it all comes stamped with the designer's stamp. It's his style, because it's all perfect. Amen?